I have a rendezvous with death. We'll preserve the last best hope of man on Earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
No fear. No political correctness. No wokeism. You're listening to Underground USA.
The mainstream media, that festering swamp of self-righteous gatekeepers, has once again exposed its true colors. This time, it's the so-called conservative stalwarts, outlets like the Wall Street Journal and National Review, leading the charge in a chorus of sanctimonious outrage. Their crime? Clutching their pearls over President Trump's audacious move to dismantle relics of U.S.-funded media outlets like Radio Free Asia, Voice of America, and their sort. On Saturday, Trump ordered the termination of grants for Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Voice of America, the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, the Open Technology Fund, and the Middle East Broadcasting Networks. And the reaction from these self-appointed arbiters of truth? A collective wail that this is a retreat in the global war of ideas. What unmitigated garbage. Let's strip away the veneer. These agencies, birthed in the Cold War to counter communism and beam truth into nations choked by government lies, have devolved into something grotesque. Once heralded as champions of liberty, they've morphed into megaphones for a leftist gospel of globalism, a creed that spits in the face of freedom and individualism, the very cornerstones of Americanism. Yet here come the conservative media darlings, wringing their hands as if Trump's axe is chopping down the last bastion of righteousness. National Review whines that shutting down Voice of America and its cousins is a misguided reaction to organizational failings, insisting that none of their shortcomings are enough on their own to justify such a purge. Really? The White House has a laundry list of outrages that says otherwise. Voice of America instructing its journalists to call Hamas operatives militants instead of terrorists, staff spewing hyper-partisan drivel on social media, and a steady stream of left-wing bile on race and transgenderism. Add to that lapses in vetting foreign employees, resource mismanagement, and the peddling of anti-American narratives, and you've got a rotting corpse masquerading as a public good. The Wall Street Journal isn't much better, cherry-picking rare instances where these propaganda mills, and let's call them what they are, stumble into doing something worthwhile. But those moments are fleeting, drowned out by the overwhelming stench of ideological decay. These outlets, Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and the rest, are non-profit in name only, sucking at the teat of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, fully funded by taxpayers to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And what do we get for it? A globalist agenda that undermines the very nation footing the bill. The hypocrisy of the traditional conservative media elite is astonishing. They've spent years posturing as defenders of truth, liberty, and fiscal responsibility. Yet when Trump dares to torch these sacred cows, they recoil in horror? Why? Because their authoritative autonomy, their self-anointed role as the vanguard of conservatism, is under siege, and they're terrified. This isn't about principle. Again, and this is a reoccurring theme with those protesting Trump's reformative moves, it's about power. The protestations from the Wall Street Journal, National Review, and their second selves at Fox News are the death rattles of an elitist clique that's long held sway over the narrative. They're now panicking as their influence crumbles. Look at the numbers. News consumption has shifted dramatically, and the old guard is being left in the dust. In 2025, the Internet dominates globally, accounting for 40 to 50% of news intake. Think websites, social media, streaming, and apps. Cable limps along at 20 to 25%, traditional broadcast television at 15 to 20%, and satellite and radio trailing at 5 to 10% each. Pew Research in 2024 found that a third of U.S. adults regularly get news from platforms like Facebook, X, YouTube, and Rumble, a trend echoing worldwide as internet access explodes. Streaming's rise, hitting 40.3% of U.S. TV usage in June of 2024 per Statista, only accelerates this shift. Meanwhile, trust in traditional outlets is hemorrhaging. The Edelman Trust Barometer pegged global trust in mainstream media at a measly 43% in 2023, down from prior years, battered by accusations of bias, sensationalism, and corporate puppetry. The people are waking up. And who's driving this exodus? The young, Gen Z and millennials, who scoff at legacy brands. The 2023 Reuters Institute Digital News Report found 55% of those under 35 globally turned to social media first, often flocking to independent voices over the polished lies of the establishment. If the goal is to reach future generations, then Voice of America, Radio Free Asia, and their dinosaur brethren are already fossils. Yet the conservative media, the traditional conservative media, clings to them like life rafts, desperate to preserve a system that's as obsolete as it is corrupt. This is where Trump shines. He's no traditional conservative, a term so diluted by Republicans in name only, like Mitch McConnell, that it's lost all meaning. Trump is an anti-federalist, a wrecking ball to the bloated, overreaching national government that's drowned us in taxes, regulations, and globalist surrender. He sees these media agencies not as noble emissaries, but as cogs in the oppressive machine, stakeholders in a status quo that's suffocating the American spirit. And the citizenry agrees. We don't see a free press in these government-subsidized relics. We see a cabal propping up an elitist structure we're desperate to tear down. The traditional conservative media's tantrum is predictable. They're cut from the same cloth as the 40-year congressional power clingers, jumping on and off the Trump train as it suits their quest for relevance. The Wall Street Journal and National Review lash out because their fraud has been laid bare. They're not guardians of conservatism, but members of the same bloated national elite Trump's supporters are rejecting. The people are fleeing to independent outlets, online platforms, podcasts, social media, where truth and fact aren't filtered through a legacy lust for influence. So, should Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Voice of America, and the rest be euthanized? It's a fair debate. If they're to survive, it'd have to be in a radically new form, leveraging modern technology and enforcing ruthless vetting to ensure truth, not propaganda, reigns. But in their current state, no amount of cherry-picked good can save them. They're bloated, corrupt, biased, and beholden to a federal beast that's lost its way. Trump's move isn't a retreat, it's a reckoning. And the conservative media's howls only prove they're on the wrong side of it. The global war of ideas isn't fought with dusty relics of a bygone era. It's waged on the digital frontier, where the people, not the elites, hold the reins. The mainstream conservative press can clutch its pearls all it wants, but the tide has turned. Their time is up. Let them die with the propaganda mills they defend. We'll find the truth elsewhere, unfiltered, unbowed, and free. When we come back, our segment on America's Third Watch with Kyle Warren, broadcast nationally from our flagship station, WGUL, AM 930 and FM 93.7 in Tampa, Florida.
You're listening to Underground USA.
Wokeism is nothing but a repackaging of cultural Marxism, aiming to dismantle American values and the very fabric of our society. It's a dangerous ideology that seeks to divide us, pitting groups against each other in the name of pseudo-equality. We must stand firm against this threat, protect our heritage, and preserve the principles that made America great. We at Underground USA urge you to educate yourselves by taking the free courses at Hillsdale College to understand the depth of this issue. America's future depends on our vigilance and commitment to truth. That future begins with you.
News, insight, passion. AM 930, The Answer.
Well, Frank, what do you think about this? I mean, did Elon Musk, if he owns and runs the internet, why isn't he controlling it right now to his advantage?
Well, this kind of exhibits how stupid people on the left are, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't it? Yeah, Elon Musk owns and operates the internet. He probably does it from Mars. Said the wannabe leprechaun who went over to. I'm sure Ireland is so pleased to have her.
Yeah. Well, he probably runs it from Mars so that he doesn't have to pay taxes or something. I'm sure that'll come in there somewhere.
When he'll rig the elections up there to make sure Trump is Stacey Abrams is going to be bent because Trump is probably going to be president of the universe now because Elon Musk is going to rig it for him.
That's right. But isn't it interesting, Frank, because, that sounds like election denial to me. I wonder if the media is going to descend upon her and ask her for evidence, stuff like that.
Well, there's enough of her to descend upon, isn't there?
Well, but again, are they even going to, it's just being said by, the likes of Rosie O'Donnell. So it's really, it's just kind of funny in the strict sense. But boy, oh boy, it's everything about this whole thing regarding the Trump administration, everything that's happening with Doge. Are they just running out of stuff to say? Now they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel?
No. This is part and parcel. I wrote about this last week, I believe, when I said Trump derangement syndrome has morphed into Musk derangement syndrome. Mm-hmm. They're out of their minds because somebody who used to be one of their darlings has facilitated their worst fears, the return of Donald Trump. That's what this is. And ask anybody who has voted Democrat before and then had their awakening moment to say, boy, this political party is nothing but a bunch of charlatans and opportunists. They haven't come through on any promises about anything that is supposed to be about their core ideology in almost 50 years. They've been lying to me about everything, so I can't vote for them anymore. I'm voting for Donald Trump. You say that to somebody who is a hardcore leftist, and you become the Antichrist. Mm-hmm. Ask Tulsi Gabbard. Ask Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Ask Elon Musk. They were all darlings of the left. Remember, Tulsi Gabbard was a shooting star. They wanted to give her, she was going to be the future of the Democrat Party until she took on Hillary Clinton and then said the Democrat Party left me. I can't be here anymore. Then she became the Antichrist. Robert F. Kennedy promoting Donald Trump. This is dynasty stuff. This is the Kennedy family. Well, now he's insane. We have to destroy him. He's trying to kill us all. Now Elon Musk, the guy who was, he's the electric car guy. He's the guy who is putting people into space. He's the guy with Neuralink who's trying to help people who are paralyzed walk again. Starlink. Oh, no, he likes Donald Trump, so he must be crushed. He must be killed. We have to kill his business and kill him. This is the mentality of the left.
Yeah.
So you've got Rosie O'Donnell, who is a nobody. She started out as a VJ on VH1.
I remember,
because she could crack a joke every 3 minutes. They gave her a talk show. And the lemmings and the sheep went over and applauded whenever the sign came on that said applause. And suddenly she thought she was important and educated, to the point where she thinks people give a damn if she moved out of the country. We don't.
Well,
we really don't.
No, we don't. And you know what's kind of funny about that, too, is she left the country, but she said everybody else was staying behind and they were hopefully going to do what's right. And I thought, isn't that kind of typical? It's like, I'm out of here. I'm done. But you guys stay and fight the fight that I'm not going to fight, but I'm just going to go over and just really be mad about this stuff. I mean, that's typical. She left the cause behind.
Exactly. And I saw this just last night when I was scrolling through social media. These people getting on, they need to spout their stuff, and they always have these you could tell that they're far left because they've got these cheesy glasses on. I don't know what it is about people who exist on the far left, but they find the dumbest glasses to wear. And, I don't, I wear glasses. I just don't wear stupid, thick-framed, colored, retarded-looking glasses. But I had this one woman on there with what I guess are supposed to be oversized, weird, oblong cat glasses. And she said, now somebody's got to go out there and stop Elon Musk. Somebody has to go do it. Somebody has. What about you? You coward.
Frank, there's a lot going on. We've all seen the video of these Tren de Agua gang members and designated terrorists organization being sent off to El Salvador with this Supermax prison where they have them bent over the entire time. They walk them along, they shave their heads, and they put them into to the prison. Basically, it's pretty hellacious, if you ask me, in terms of where they're heading. But there's a lot of controversy on the fact that they were, in fact, flown out of the country. Tom Homan, the border czar, talking about how, he says we're following the laws on the books. What do you think's going on?
The president has the executive power to do whatever he feels like because they're a designated terrorist organization through the State Department. All of these U.S. district judges, charged by the lawfare brigade, people like Norm Eisen and Mark Elias, this is just about slowing the Trump administration down in anything they do. This just happens to be convenient for them because they have all of the formerly USAID-funded non-governmental organizations, NGOs, that were all ready to go because Trump was talking deportation from the beginning of his campaign. They had these lawsuits all ready to go. Mm-hmm. They had already judge shopped. They knew who they were going to, and they were going to be, whether it was Tren de Aragua or MS-13 or any of the other El Salvadorian or Venezuelan gangs that were designated terror groups, international terror groups, they were going to sue to say that it was illegal for us to deport them. Well, the president has the same authority to detain and deport people like Tren de Aragua and MS-13 as he did Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah and Hamas. So this lawfare that's happening is just about slowing down the agenda so they can beat the clock for 4 years. It's going to happen whether it's about deportations and immigration, the EPA, DOJ. These lawsuits aren't going to stop until, and this is my hope of hopes, Kyle, until the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, checks all the boxes, connects all the dots, said, all of these lawyers and all of these judges it's a fraud, and we're going to indict them and prosecute them under the RICO statutes for racketeering. When they frog march, Mark Elias and Norm Eisen And a couple of these federal judges, because federal judges can be arrested if they've broken the law. They could take them right off the bench, right out of the courtroom.
Yeah, because last time I checked, even the Democrats love to tell us no one's above the law, but I guess it only works if they're trying to go after Trump.
That's right. No one's above the law. You set the precedent for it, so here we go.
Yep.
And Pam Bondi's team, the most beautiful gift that she could give to the people of the United States in the service of her country is to connect the dots to be able to take all of those K Street lawyers, all of those inside the Beltway lawyers who always file lawsuits and judge shop. Whenever there's a move towards conservatism in Washington, D.C., connect the dots to find out that they were conspiring with each other to stop the agenda of the president. And let's get a RICO indictment against these people and make it the biggest case in the history of the United States.
Very interesting indeed. Well, of course, the idea is that you've got judges, and somehow, and in typically, Frank, we do honor the judges and the judicial arm here. But what you're talking about is something that's egregious, something that is something you can prove, something that is going on that goes beyond this notion of, well, judges are sacrosanct. Typically, they would be. We follow their judgments. But if it's breaking the law, like you said, that's a different story, and that's the argument that has to come out if and when something like this would occur.
If you grew up in Chicago like I did, a judge getting arrested, tried, and convicted for corruption is nothing new.
Mm-hmm. It's
just this would be at the federal level. It can be done. It should be done when crimes are committed. And this is a perfect opportunity to send the message with a hammer that you can't do this and we're not putting up with it. Now, there's a lot of people talking impeachment. That's one avenue. Using the rule of law against corrupt people in the judiciary is another one. And that goes for lawyers and judges. But Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis is correct, too. You could legislate because Congress creates the lower federal courts. You could legislate their purview. Pass a law. We've got control of both houses. How about we do something with it instead of sitting there saying, hey, we've got majorities. Let's do something with it to change the parameters of the game. Democrats do it every single time. That's how they got Obamacare passed. But those you're breaking the rules. Well, we don't care. We're getting what we want passed.
Yeah, because we have the majority. Well,
not only that, but because the Constitution says each chamber makes the rules. So make the rules.
Right. No, I hear you. Absolutely. Well, what they're trying to set up too, Frank, is this notion of we're going to a constitutional crisis because they all want Trump to, quote, defy the Supreme Court, which I don't know that he will do, but they certainly were trying to lay the basis for trying to create some kind of major confrontation in this country.
The constitutional crisis is that Democrats aren't getting their way. Wah, wah, wah.
Yep.
It's always a constitutional crisis when they're not in power. Oh, Trump woke up and had coffee this morning. It's a constitutional crisis.
Yep.
It's that's so old. It echoes of, oh, you're a racist. Oh, really? Yawn. I know I'm not. I'm not. But you're going to say it anyway because you're not getting your way because you're a petulant adolescent child. So, I give a damn if Chuck Schumer's out there saying it's a constitutional crisis. Constitutional crisis is when you're standing out in front of the Supreme Court building, stirring up dissent, and then threatening U.S. Supreme Court justices. That's a constitutional crisis.
That's right. That's exactly it. Yeah. In fact, he basically said, you've released the whirlwind. This is not going to stand. Yep.
You don't know what's going to hit you.
Right. Exactly. And
so this desire for them to scream the sky is falling every time they don't get their way, it's the stuff of 3-year-olds. And elections have consequences. Barack Obama said that.
Yeah.
Elections have consequences. You lost, and you lost big. So, guys, girls in Washington on the right side of the aisle, you've got the levers of power for at least another year and 9 months. Get using it.
Frank, it seems to me that the Snow White film, evidently, is now the lowest Disney live-action remake to open up here in the studio's history. When are they going to start figuring out that people want to see either new product or, how about this, just good product come out of the Disney studios?
Don't jack with dwarfs, man. I'm telling you, they've got power. Yeah, that's part of something that comes out later on today over at undergroundusa.com is the failure of the entertainment industry, and how it's just been completely hijacked by wokeness, whether it's television shows or movies like Snow White. You get lectured. They have to insert this message. They have to tell you that you have to accept it in order to be someone who's appreciative of their art form. It deprives us of the escapism that entertainment is supposed to provide us. We don't go to movies to be validated about our political stances. We go to forget about our lives for 90 minutes or 2 hours. It's like a sitcom. We don't want to be preached to about whether or not we can virtue signal. We want to escape from everything and maybe laugh
right
for the 13 minutes of new product every week that they actually put out.
Right. No, you're exactly right. And I mean, even so, a lot of these, like, for example, when Snow White came out, that was what, in the late 30s, I think, somewhere in there.
It was 37.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. 1937. I mean, it exists in its own space. It's an art form in and of itself. And I always think like these live action remakes, whether it's The Lion King, which came out 30 years ago, basically a little over 30 years ago, it tries to recapture lightning in a bottle. It never really does. Or Lion King was live action, but it was the CGI animals, like they're more realistic. But it just seems to me to be it always falls flat. I just wish that there would be like something new to see. But you're right. But get rid of the preachy stuff. I think this is why so many people don't want to go to the movies or don't want to watch some of these shows any longer, or especially these award shows, because they're just tired of it. And it's almost as if they pour it on harder, Frank, because of the very fact that people have rejected it at the ballot box.
It's because they're not deep enough to think beyond themselves. Pew Research Center had a poll, I believe it was 2023, 2024, that said that people are tuning out because they're tired of politics in their entertainment. They don't want it anymore. They want to be left alone. And this goes for entertainment, it goes for everything else. I don't want to hear about it. Leave me alone. There doesn't need to be DEI in anything. I don't care. If you own a business and you want to hire people in a certain way that doesn't discriminate against someone else, be my guest. I don't care. If you want to hire everybody and one of the prerequisites is everyone's got to have blue hair, go right ahead. I don't care. But that also gives me the right not to shop at your place if I'm offended by blue hair, which I don't really care. Mm-hmm. So this idea that an entire industry, and one that has a deep history of problems with inserting political messages into its content, is not getting the message that we're done with it. This is why it's dying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, Frank, I think we got time. Would you like to take a quick phone call this morning?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Driver Mike is giving us a call this morning. Good morning, Driver Mike. You're on with Frank Silvato.
Morning, Mr. Carl and Mr. Frank. You know what I'd like to see? Elon and his crew step it up a notch and just catch one of these judges taking money from that USAID crap and just prosecute him. And I think that will nip it in the bud with all these left-wing judges.
Very interesting. Hey, well, yeah, thanks, Driver Mike. We appreciate the call. Stay safe out there.
Drive safe, people. Be polite.
All right, take care. Let's Driver Mike, everybody. And Frank, yeah, what do you think? I mean, you know, something's got to get the ball rolling here, it would seem.
Well, it has to be an extension. Most of the liberal judges who do this stuff are a little bit too savvy to be able to be under the table taking bundles of cash. But how is the money getting funneled to them? And this is where Elon Musk is peeling back the onion. You look at this Boasberg, who's the one who's trying to stop Trump from deporting Nicaragua. His daughter's got an NGO that does work for immigration. So if she's got an NGO that was taking money from USAID about immigration issues, shouldn't Boasberg have recused himself? Yes, he should have. It's a conflict of interest, you know, but he didn't. So this is where the suggestion that Ron DeSantis made, which is a brilliant suggestion that Congress can act on, is to say, you know, okay, we're going to establish some parameters here. If you have any relationship to anybody who's receiving federal funding on the issue over which you're presiding, you're expunged from the pool of judges that can hear cases like that. And if it gets to such a level where you can't hear a case because you're that connected to the people who are activists, then you shouldn't be on the bench.
Mm-hmm. Well, and certainly the reverse would be true. If there was a judge and one of their family members, their daughter, what have you, they were connected into conservative, activists, a think tank, or MAGA Republicans, it would just be a conniption fit.
You write the legislation so that it covers everybody regardless of political party. I know, shock of shocks, you might want to actually legislate a piece of legislation that isn't steeped in political party politics. But that's where we are today. People have been brainwashed to believe that good government is politics 100% of the time. Good government is when government serves the people regardless of political party. And that seldom happens in Washington today because we have fallen to what George Washington warned us about almost 250 years ago. He warned us in his farewell address, beware of political factions. They will be the ruin of the republic.
Mm-hmm.
And he was damn sure right.
Yep.
The political parties are killing the republic because they're greedy and they believe government is their domain to rule over. It's not.
That's right. And even right now, within one of those political parties, namely the Democrats, they're having some issues. And Frank, I mentioned earlier on the show, a lot of these TV interviewers, they will refer to Chuck Schumer as Leader Schumer. It's like they want to reemphasize that, I think, but he may not be leader for long if some in the party get their way. But there's where the real story is, I think, a lot of the times, how fractured the Democrats really are and how far left they really want to go. Well,
this is a perfect example of the loudest mouth in the room getting the attention. The far left does not like what Schumer did. As much as I don't like Chuck Schumer, his politics on this was actually very, very good. He knew he couldn't win. He had a losing hand. He decided to fold instead of raising the stakes. It was a wise move politically for a person with a losing political hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now the far left is starting to saber rattle, saying because you didn't do what we told you, you've got to go. That's the whining of the petulant children of the very far left. Now, granted, to get Chuck Schumer out of office, unless it's in a box, You're going to see scratch marks in the marble going down the hall from his office.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to leave willingly. He will have to be defeated at the ballot box. But, that's the state of New York. They're so far off the rails to the left. They might be incredibly inane enough to put an intellectual midget, and I apologize to all midgets, like AOC in to replace Schumer. If that's the case, New York is finished. They've become an asylum, not a state.
You're listening to Underground USA.
A free and independent media is the backbone of our great republic. So it's crucial to have media outlets that aren't influenced by big tech censorship or the leftist mainstream media complex. But that means supporting journalistic outlets that bring us the truth without spinning facts to push a narrative. For less than the cost of a cup of coffee once a month at Starbucks, you can support the free speech mission of UndergroundUSA.com, an independent, reader-supported, and sometimes irreverent podcast and publication that gives you the real story without the bias. Go to undergroundusa.com/UUSA. That's undergroundusa.com/UUSA to receive a 25% discount on an annual subscription, bringing every new podcast and article directly into your email inbox, circumventing the censors and fact-checkers. Remember, knowledge is power, and staying informed is one of the best ways to protect our republic. Go out there and seek the truth, my friends. Subscribe to undergroundusa.com today.
There's no business like show, business like no business I know.
I'm going to divert for a moment from my usual researched analysis on politics and geopolitics here to wax philosophical, or perhaps observational, about the entertainment industry and how it is completely failing society, both around the world and especially here in the United States. But for a very few offerings today, the entertainment industry is complete garbage, and it only has itself to blame for its demise. For as long as humans have toiled under the weight of daily existence, entertainment has been a sanctuary, a shimmering oasis where the mind can flee from the grind of bills, deadlines, and the relentless beatdown of reality. Whether it's the flickering glow of a movie screen, the lyric lines that transport us to another place or time, or the dog-eared pages of a novel, people have long turned to these escapes to recharge, to dream, to feel something beyond the mundane. Entertainment was once a pressure valve, a way to sidestep life's burdens without judgment or sermonizing. But today, that sacred refuge is under siege, infiltrated by the creeping tendrils of wokeism and cultural Marxism, ideologies that have turned art into a megaphone for sanctimonious preaching, robbing us of true escapism. The allure of entertainment as an escape is primal. Life is hard, always has been. The average person wrestles with financial strain, fractured relationships, and the quiet despair of unfulfilled dreams. A 2023 study from the American Psychological Association found that 77% of adults reported significant stress from work and money woes, a number that's only climbed in recent years. Entertainment offered a reprieve, a chance to slip into a world where heroes triumph, love conquers, or at least where the stakes feel thrillingly distant from our own. Think of the golden age of Hollywood. Films like Casablanca, a personal favorite, or The Wizard of Oz. They didn't lecture you on systemic inequities. They swept you into stories of courage and wonder. Songs like Sitting on the Dock of the Bay transported you to serenity without a sidebar on racial inequity. And books like Tolkien's Lord of the Rings built sprawling universes free of diversity quotas. These were escapes, pure and simple. But that purity is gone. Today's entertainment industry has been hijacked by a cadre of self-righteous ideologues who see every script, every pixel, every lyric as a battlefield for social engineering. Wokeism, a noxious blend of identity obsession, grievance culture, and moral superiority, has wormed its way into every corner of pop culture, dragging cultural Marxism along for the ride. This isn't about art anymore. It's about control. Studios, publishers, and developers bow to a shrill minority of activists, increasingly embedded into the industry, who incrementally insert their ideology into the process until they reach a point of demanding that every story reflect their narrow worldview, where characters aren't judged by their actions, but by their skin color, gender, or proximity to some imagined oppressed class. The result? A glut of content that's less about entertaining and more about indoctrination. Take Hollywood, which, for the most part, has turned into a cauldron of coastal elitism that panders to narcissistic virtue signaling while ignoring the values of its audiences. Once a dream factory, it's now a propaganda mill. So-called blockbusters like Disney's recent Star Wars sequels or Marvel's endless churn of capes and tights flicks doesn't just tell stories. They lecture. Rey is a flawless, strong female character because the script says so, not because she's earned it. Captain Marvel smirks through adversity, untouchable and unrelatable, a cardboard cutout of feminist talking points. And subtlety is dead. Every line drips with an agenda. Television's no better. Shows like The Rings of Power twist Tolkien's legacy into a diversity checkbox, alienating fans who just wanted Middle-earth, not a sociology seminar. A perfect example comes to us in the television series Everwood, the story of Dr. Andy Brown, a widowed and renowned Manhattan neurosurgeon who impulsively moves his teenage son and young daughter to the small, picturesque mountain town of Everwood, Colorado, following his wife's sudden death. The series starts out exploring the family's adjustment to their new life, navigating grief, their complex relationships, and the challenges of small-town living. But by season 4, it devolves into a storyline including a main character who embraces radical feminism and left-wing causes, and episodes about hot-button issues like abortion, with the occasional promotion of leftist politicians and digs at politicians from the right. It moved away from a journey with a family people could relate to, and arrived at an unrelatable caricature of a pseudo-utopian small town, lecturing on diversity and tolerance. While it returned to a non-woke theme by the end of the series, the damage was already done. Another example comes to us in Disney's unnecessary remake of Snow White, which both critics and viewers alike took issue. The adaptation was roundly criticized for its woke narrative updates, emphasizing female empowerment and cultural inclusivity. The box office immediately registered its unquestionable disapproval, as has been the case with all Disney films as of late, so stoked in DEI. This isn't escapism. It's ideology-induced exhaustion that robs people of escapism. People don't want to flee the stress of their lives only to be scolded about privilege or climate change. A 2022 YouGov poll found that 62% of Americans feel entertainment is too political, with many citing it as the reason they've tuned out. The numbers speak clearly in support of that poll. Box office receipts for woke-heavy films like The Marvels tanked, pulling in a measly $206 million worldwide against a $270 million budget, $63 million underwater. Meanwhile, unapologetically escapist fare like Top Gun Maverick soared past $1.4 billion in receipts. Audiences are voting with their wallets, begging for stories that don't nag, preach, and lecture. Further proof comes in the television franchise Yellowstone with all of its spin-offs, creative writing, original content, non-preachy script lines. The root of this rot, of course, is cultural Marxism, a framework that bastardizes art as a tool to dismantle oppressive structures, capitalism, patriarchy, Americanism, you name it. Wokeism is its arrogant, ignorant, self-absorbed, loudmouth offspring, obsessed with deconstructing everything fun or heroic into a guilt trip. Villains can't just be evil. They're products of a systemic injustice. Heroes can't just win. They must first navel-gaze about their privilege. The industry's enforcers, critics, executives, social media pseudo-potentates, they cheer this on, dismissing dissent as bigotry. If you complain that Ghostbusters Afterlight feels like a corporate feminist sermon, you're a misogynist. If you miss the days when television shows had characters like Archie Bunker or Red Foreman, you're a dinosaur. The message is clear. Conform or be canceled. What the audiences want, be damned. This relentless social engineering has stripped entertainment of its soul. Escapism thrives on freedom, freedom to imagine, to feel, to lose yourself without a lecture. Wokeism chains today's escapism to reality's worst impulses: division, resentment, sanctimony. People aren't turning away because they hate progress. They're turning away because they're tired of elites lecturing them about how bad they are. They want dragons, not dogma. Lyrics that touch the heart, not lessons. The industry could save itself by remembering why we loved it in the first place. Because it let us dream. Until then, every new release risks being another sermon we didn't sign up for. And the oasis of escapism grows infinitely drier by the day.
You're listening to Underground USA.
Our constitutional republic is under siege by the neo-Jacobins of the radical left, pushing socialist agendas that erode our freedoms. Engaging with your elected officials isn't just a right, it's a duty. Your voice ensures they uphold the rights of the individual, protect the Constitution, and resist the left's overreach. Visit govtracks.us to contact your elected officials and stay informed on legislation. The midterms are coming. Together, we can safeguard liberty and make sure America stays on the right track.
If you like the podcast, please head on over to undergroundusa.com and sign up for our Substack. It brings every new podcast and article directly into your email inbox. And do your part to safeguard the Republic. Talk politics, religion, current events, even culture with your family, friends, colleagues, and acquaintances. When we have these non-aggressive conversations, honest and open, using facts, and emoting our feelings in a way that doesn't demean the other person, we realize that we have more in common than we have in difference. And that bugs the living shit out of the deep state bureaucracy that thrives on us being balkanized so that they can cobble together those 51% during every election cycle. By coming together, we can defeat the bureaucracy and the deep state, becoming one and a better nation, a better republic. You're listening to Underground USA. No fear, no wokeism, no political correctness. My name is Frank Salvato.